In the world, there exists a group of people who possess countless, outstanding characteristics such as intelligence, talent, and have contributed to humanity many outstanding people. However, this people has endured a tragic fate of displacement for thousands of years. And upon returning to their homeland, they become targets of a sky full of hostility and even face rampant racial discrimination. The people I'm referring to are none other than the Jewish people. Originating from the Holy Land, their history is overshadowed by a color of pain. They have been expelled from their homeland, enslaved, or even become victims of one of the greatest atrocities in human history. Today, let's explore the Jewish people and the reasons behind the myriad of tragedies they have faced. The rise. The Jewish people trace their origins back to the ancient Hebrews who appeared in the Middle East around 4,000 years ago. According to legend, the Jews and Arabs are descendants of Abram's lineage. Abram, a legendary figure believed to have obeyed the call of God to leave his homeland in the city of Ur in northern Mesopotamia, present-day southeastern Turkey. Along with his relatives, Abraham journeyed to establish himself in a land stretching from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, known as Canaan. This foundational event was recorded in the book of Exodus within the Bible. It is said that Abram saw God at the time his family left Ur. In a dream, he was directed by God to the land of Canaan. Canaan later became known as the Promised Land. Abraham accepted the covenant and pledged to worship God as Jehovah, the sole God of the universe. The significance of changing the name from Abram to Abraham carries profound meaning. Being blessed by God as the father of many nations implies that Abraham is not only the patriarch of the Jewish people, but also the father of the Arab people. The history of the Jewish people begins with the story of the family of Abraham. They evolved from a clan to a tribe and eventually blossomed into the Jewish nation as we know it today. Now that we've covered the roots of the Jewish people, what about the name Israel? That might be a question many of you are pondering, right? After Abram's passing, the responsibility of leading the Jewish people was passed down to his son, Isaac, and then to his grandson, Jacob. One night, Jacob dreamed that he was wrestling with a stranger. Strangely, the stranger, whom Jacob believed to be an image of God, blessed him and gave him the name Israel. Similar to his grandfather, Abraham, the name bestowed upon Jacob also carries a portent for the destiny of his people. Israel means one who struggles with God, a notion that has become increasingly apparent from our modern perspective. From their earliest days, the Jewish people have self-proclaimed themselves as a people enlightened beyond others. It's no coincidence that they birthed three of the world's major religions to this day. Starting with Judaism around 1500 BCE, followed by Christianity, founded by Jesus in the 1st century as a branch stemming from Judaism, and finally Islam, founded by the Prophet Muhammad in the 6th century. While Islam isn't a direct offshoot of Judaism or Christianity, it perceives itself as a perfect continuation and replacement for the two aforementioned religions. The emergence of these three religions, along with their sacred texts, has created the Bible, known as the most widely read book throughout history. The Torah of Judaism, or the Old Testament, has inspired 14 million Jewish believers, 2 billion Christians, and is retold in the Quran for 1.5 billion Muslims. An undeniable influence. However, the Jewish people and the descendants of Abraham clearly didn't exist alone at the crossroads of the world. Alongside them were a plethora of civilizations and even empires that rose and fell. As emerging empires began to rise, Canaan became a strategic location. The land became a corridor between the sea and the desert, providing trade routes and military pathways amidst vast and powerful nations surrounding it. Fierce battles ensued over and around the land of Canaan. All of this made Canaan a blessing as well as a curse for the small tribes living there. Among these tribes were the Jewish people, In fact, the Jewish people were mere players in Canaan, amidst numerous larger civilizations. Throughout the second millennium BCE, it was merely a province passed between various nations. These included Egypt to the south, Babylon, and Mesopotamia, Sumer to the north. These powerhouses always boasted advanced administrative systems, possessed the latest military technologies, and especially extensive trade networks transcending borders. None escaped their influence, whether materially in arts, architecture, or, of course, spiritually. The rise and fall. To delve into the specific tragedies of Jewish history, we might need days of discussion. However, within the constraints of a video, let's highlight two major events, the most painful ones for this community. Enslavement in Egypt. After a period of civil war, Egypt was unified around 2000 BCE under the reign of Pharaoh Mentuhotep II, based in Thebes. Over the next 200 years, the Egyptian empire reached its zenith in all aspects. Most importantly, the economic boom of this ancient nation led to a massive wave of migration to the fertile lands along the Nile River. During this time, Canaan was hit by famine. Consequently, Jacob led his tribe in search of better lands, ultimately heading to Egypt with its fertile soil nourished by the Nile. This land became the breadbasket for the Mediterranean region and a promised land for neighboring peoples facing famine and hardship. The entire Jewish population, numbering about 70 individuals under Jacob's leadership, embarked on a fateful journey to Egypt. What was thought to be a temporary refuge turned into 400 years of exile. Jacob's 12 sons developed into the 12 tribes settling in Goshen, a land abundant in resources. This magnificent land was ideal for agriculture and livestock farming. Thus, the Jews transitioned from nomadic to settled agricultural life. From a group of 70 migrants, they grew into hundreds of thousands, promising remarkable achievements. However, their rapid development became a concern for Egypt. The ancient empire feared that Jewish growth might threaten its security. The pharaohs swiftly reclaimed these lands and subjected the Jews to slavery, forcing them into harsh labor and, cruelly, ordering the killing of all male Jewish infants to gradually eliminate their lineage. Amidst the lament of Jewish slavery, a saint appeared as a miracle, rescuing them from bondage. That saint was Moses, who emerged around the 15th–14th century BCE. Moses was born in Egypt into a Jewish family during a period when Egypt sought to destroy this ethnic group. Moses' sister, Miriam, hid him in a bush until Princess Thermuthis discovered him while playing by the river. The princess brought the baby to the palace and named him Moses. He was raised as a prince in the royal court. Moses grew up to be an extraordinary individual, educated in the royal court. One day, witnessing an Egyptian soldier brutalizing a Jewish slave, Moses killed the soldier out of fear of punishment. Fleeing the palace, he served in the Ethiopian army before becoming a shepherd in the desert of Jordan. Up to this point, Moses was unaware of his true origins. However, everything changed when Moses led his flock deep into the sacred mountains of Sinai. Suddenly, God appeared in a burning bush, commanding Moses to lead his people out of Egypt to the Promised Land as they were suffering as slaves. Armed with the sacred staff bestowed by God, Moses, along with his wife and sons, embarked on the journey to liberate the Jews from Egyptian bondage. Moses successfully led about 400,000 Jews out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea. They journeyed eastward through deserts, wandering for 40 years. Finally, they conquered the land of Canaan, promised to them by God since the time of Abraham. Despite living to 120, Moses did not enter the Promised Land, but died in the desert. Now, let's take a break and recharge here, because the hardships that the Jewish people have endured that I've just recounted are just the beginning of a more horrific nightmare. See you in the next part with the journey of this race from slavery in Egypt, diaspora in Europe, to the Holocaust in World War II. Stay tuned.